You think I'm funny? Do you think I'm funny? Hello, my friends. Today we're doing an oil change on the Volkswagen Alltrack for Vanessa. We're here at my job. We have a 2-post lift here. It's just gonna be a little bit easier to do an oil change rather than doing this in the garage, tight quarters. I don't have the right tools and the stuff there, so this is what we're gonna do. Let's get started. All right, first thing we're gonna do, hood open, locate the oil filter, dipstick, take off the oil cap back here, set this on the cowl. That's what I like to do. We're gonna take off our engine cover. We're just gonna put this to the side. First thing I start with is taking off the oil filter, and then we're gonna raise the car up and go from there. All right, we're gonna need a 32mm socket and a ratchet. Gonna loosen that filter up. Gonna go nice and slow. If there's pressure in there, let the oil drip down so you don't get it everywhere. All over your nice clean floor here. Thanks, Jeremy. We're gonna loosen the oil filter, let that oil kind of settle down. That way when you're pulling this out, you're not having oil go everywhere. I've done this a few thousand times. Old job. Pause. No drips. I'm gonna pull that out, let that just drip into the drip tray here. Oil filter is out. Nice and easy. Just don't worry about that. We're gonna put that in after we're done draining the oil. Now what we're gonna do is raise this car up and take off the skid plate and drain the oil. All right, now that we're under the car, we're gonna take off these 13mm bolts in the back and T15, maybe T20, maybe T something screws in the side. Screws on the side. Make sure you put these next to somewhere safe. Make sure you put those somewhere safe where you're gonna remember where they're at. All right, now that we have the T25 for these screws, we're gonna blast these out. So on the Alltrack, the passenger side has 4 screws and the driver side has 3. And then when you notice that you have these screws out, now once you have those screws out, you have to take out these 2 screws and these 2 screws that you forgot about. Now what you're gonna do is put down your tools while holding this up because you're a freaking acrobat, and you're gonna grab this skid plate. And it's off. All right, now that we have the skid plate off, we're gonna take our drain plug off. This is not your typical 6-pointed head. It's a T20. Volkswagen does sell a special tool for this. It's a T20 with basically a flathead screwdriver on opposite sides. I've always used a T20, never had any problems. Let's pop this boy off. Judge best. Where's this gonna go? How far do you think this is going? Do you think we're gonna go too far?
Okay.
Alex, if you're watching this, I'm sorry about your clean floors. I'm gonna move the plug out of the way so it's not getting completely covered like it already has been. All right, so we're gonna let this drain. Remember to get your engine to operating temperature, about 200, 210 degrees, whatever your car is. For the Alltrack, I think it was around 200. Make sure you get to operating temperature, it's gonna help drain it the best. I'm gonna move this pan a little bit so we don't get any splashing. And we're just gonna let it drain. So while this is draining, I'm just gonna remove the old filter from the housing. Just gonna take that out. Leave it in there. Make sure you get all the oil that's in here out, which as you see from the first step that we did, letting it kind of all drip down into the oil filter housing, it will go back down in through here, so you won't actually have to clean it up like you are now. We're gonna let this just be done. We're gonna forget about it, and when you remember about it, go have a beer. When you remember, plug it back up, because by the time you remember about it, it's gonna be done. So while your car is draining and you're having your beer, we're gonna take off the old gaskets. So this STP filter I have extended 10,000 miles. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna do about 5,000-6,000. We have full synthetic oil. Only came with the bottom gasket, does not come with the top two. So I'm not gonna remove those. I'm gonna make sure I just lubricate those really well. But we're gonna take off this bottom red gasket first. Use a flathead or any kind of tool to really get in there and just get that gasket out. Take that and put it somewhere. Then we're gonna take this and put our new gasket over. Please recycle, kids. Just make sure you put it back in that groove where your old gasket was. You're gonna wanna make sure you put that O-ring back in the same groove you had as before. And then what you're gonna do is open up your oil. Brand new STP 5w40 Euro spec full synthetic for this pile of junk. Not really, this thing's beautiful. We're gonna poke a hole in here and get our finger, put a little bit of oil in there, and just gonna put it around the O-ring. Just a little light coat. That's all you need. Get a little bit more oil, get those other gaskets really well lubricated. Then you're gonna take your filter and just slide it in. And your oil filter is in your housing, and we're gonna put that to the side and plug up the oil pan since it's done draining now. All right, so now that our filter is done, take our plug. You can replace it. It's recommended to replace it. We're not going to, and never have. Haven't had any issues. If it does start to leak, we'll just redo it. Definitely recommended to replace it though. Gonna clean the plug and put new oil on it again. So again, fresh oil on the O-ring, gasket, whatever you want to call it. Take your plug and just gonna kind of pop it back in. It only goes in one way, so just keep spinning and then you'll eventually get some tension. What you're gonna want to make sure for is on the plug itself, as you tighten, you'll notice that. So on the bottom of the drain plug, there's a tab that matches in a groove. Just make sure that lines up and it's torqued. There's no torque specs, you just tighten it up and that's it. Wipe it down, and we're gonna put the skid plate back on. All right, so now we have our skid plate. We're just gonna wiggle this guy in here somehow. And this bolt for the front side. So we're gonna tighten these 4 bolts up on the front first. Make sure your tabs on the skid plate are kind of up over the splash guard, and it can kind of hang by itself. Oh, come on. You're not yelling at your car, you're not working on a Volkswagen. Okay, so then you're gonna go back to the first bolt that you installed because you did it too tight. And now you can't loosen it. And now this is falling apart. Oh my God, it's a disaster. All right, so now that you loosen the bolt that you tightened too much, make sure you can align the bolt holes. I'm gonna title this video, How to Watch Justin Struggle Put a Skid Plate On. I personally like to alternate sides. Alternate sides. Now that you have the front 4 bolts on, we're gonna install the back 3 bolts. Now that those 3 are on, we're gonna align the side screws. And we're just tightening these by hand first, just to make sure that everything's lined up. If you tighten something down and then it's not lined up properly, you're gonna have to untighten it and then you're gonna back at square one. Now, when we go ice racing, if we get to go, we don't have to worry about anything really destroying the plastic oil pan on these cars. So now we're gonna swap to the T25 and tighten the last remaining screws. All right, oil pan done, drain plug is installed. We're gonna lower this car, fill with oil, and put the oil filter on.
So what we're doing here is releasing the lock lever and lowering the lift.
It's not really that loud. So let's get nice and personal here. You're gonna wanna make sure that you are lining up the tip here with that center hole. And then gonna kind of wiggle it so it seats in there. There you go. Push down a little bit. I always like to reverse thread a little bit so it seats, and then I go forward. Make sure that gasket, you'll see it, make sure it doesn't come out. Start it by hand, feel it through. Get it close enough. We're gonna grab our 32mm socket and ratchet, and we're gonna tighten it down. And then we're gonna torque it to spec. This is how you torque things to spec. Done. 25 plus or minus 5 Newton meters. Plus or minus or just minus? 25 plus 5 Newton meters. We're only in foot pounds. We'll be right back. Hey Siri, what's 25 Newton meters to foot pounds? 18.4 foot pounds. Thank you. 18 foot pounds. 0 minus 2. 0 minus 2 is 18. We're actually gonna torque it, guys, come on. This ain't amateur hour. Torqued to spec. Now we're gonna fill the oil fill to 6 quarts of the 540 is what we're using today. All right, so we're gonna grab our funnel, and it's not gonna fit. So we're gonna grab another funnel. All right, now that we have a funnel that actually fits, we're gonna take our oil from earlier. We're gonna remove that little seal so it doesn't get in there. And I'm just gonna fill it. So a little trick, if you don't have a funnel, grab your dipstick and actually place it into your fill hole. And what you're gonna do is take your jug or your quart of oil and you're gonna fill it right at the top, and you're slowly gonna pour. So you're gonna use actually the dipstick to fill it if you don't have it. This is a pretty good trick if you're at a gas station and you don't have a funnel with you. Just gotta aim it right in there. Look at that. I got some knowledge for a photographer, guys. All right, so now that we have the last of the 6 quarts filled, pull out our funnel, stick it back into the container, let that drip off. And then you're gonna take your cap and just close this up. Clean any drippings that you might have or excess oil that could have spilled from previous times or something. Just clean it up a little bit. Luckily, we don't have much. Next thing we're gonna do, wash these hands before we get in the Alltrack and start it up. Now remember kids, 20 seconds is the precautionary time to clean oil off your hands and COVID. Really get in there and wash those hands with all that oil and all them germs. Now, if you're a little thirsty, alrighty, let's dry those little paws. Hands free. checklist. Oil is in, filter is on. We have the O-ring on the filter. Drain plug is in, skid plate's on. We're gonna start it up. We do have a tire light that is on. That is not part of this. We're gonna fill that up here in a minute. All right, now that we're inside and the car's started and running, we're going to wait for the operating temperature to get to where it needs to be at 200, and then we're gonna check the oil level. So let's just sit back and relax. So while the car is getting to operating temperature, you can be checking for any drips coming down from the skid plate, which we have none, so we're all good. All right, so now that the engine is at operating temperature, we're gonna turn it off and check the oil level. All right, now that the engine is off, we're gonna check the oil level. Pull your dipstick out while cleaning it. Make sure it is clean before you reinsert it. You're gonna put it back in, nice and slow. And then you're gonna pull it out and check the oil level. So you are gonna want to be between these two lines and these dots. This top oil right here looks like a little bit of splashing or something, but our oil level is kind of right in the middle, so we're good. And that's all we gotta do for the oil change. All right, everyone, that is how you do an oil change on a Volkswagen Golf Alltrack. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Woo! Yeah!